Welcome back to From the Shed End. Welcome back, episode 153 with myself, Theo, and the other Theo. How you doing, first of all?
I'm good. Yeah, really sunny week here in London, so can't complain. It almost feels like a glimpse of spring or what spring has to offer. It's definitely gotten me in the mood for a bit of warm weather. But yeah, I'm good. It's been a nice break from any Chelsea football, I feel. I've been enjoying the Champions League and the FA Cup last weekend. So yeah, for once, it's been a quite enjoyable break not having Chelsea in my life. That being said, I am looking forward to tomorrow's game and also Sunday's game. Two must wins, in my opinion. But yeah, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. This is what day is it? This is day 4, no caffeine. So we're
Ooh,
yeah. So we're having slumps throughout the day. So there's moments in the day where I'm just like I'm hitting brick walls, and then there's days where I've got loads of it, or hours in the day where I've got loads of energy. So yeah, I'm doing good though. Doing good. I'm like yourself, happy there was no Chelsea this weekend. Obviously, being the FA Cup last weekend, we didn't have any matches to play, so the team should be fully ready and prepared for tomorrow's game against Copenhagen, which we'll talk about. But before we do all of that, as always, subscribe if you haven't already. If you're new here, make sure you hit that Linktree link as well. You leave your thoughts in the comments. But we are going to be talking all things Chelsea as always on this podcast. Um, but let's talk with the news that kind of came out earlier on this week that Todd Boehly was going to talk at some form of conference, and he did that in the fashion of the Financial Times. He gave a bit more of a business overlook about Chelsea and how things are from a business perspective, and also there were questions asked about the protest and all the other stuff that's been going on over the last couple of weeks. But I don't know if you got to see any of those comments or catch any of the sort of the clips of what was said by Todd Boehly at the conference. But was you there was no real surprises. I mean, it's kind of what you expect from a businessman, really, essentially.
I'll be very honest with you. I've actually tried to disconnect from anything external or related and that's happening on the pitch. So I haven't actually followed the comments he's saying, and I've been very disconnected from anything kind of external to the what's happening on the pitch with Chelsea Football Club. But
Mm.
yeah, I kind of did get a couple glimpses, I think, of quotes that were mentioned, and he just kept it very professional and kind of business related. And I think tried to kind of stay clear of the kind of topic of the protests. But I'm kind of keen to kind of see what you thought about it all.
I mean, I wasn't too surprised by his comments based on the fact he was talking at a Financial Times conference, which is going to be heavily geared around finance. It's going to be geared around business. So I wasn't. I think a lot of people was expecting it more to be. Obviously, it was only a couple of days after the process that took place last Tuesday. So I think a lot of people expected it to be, driven more about the Chelsea and what can Chelsea do on the pitch and football business, but it's more financial because you're talking at a financial conference. So I didn't see any surprises there. It was interesting some of the things he said. I haven't got the quotes to hand, and I'm sort of paraphrasing, but almost a bit like this is the model that we've chosen. This is one that we want to go with. The fans, I think he kind of alluded to the fans are well within their rights to be annoyed or to, you're not going to please all the fans, I think was his kind of words, that you're not going to please every single fan within the fan base with what we're trying to do, which is understandable. I don't think anyone can do that. I think you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, if you're an owner or a manager of a football club. But um, I looked at those comments and then I did some more digging. And I think I spoke about it before this. I mean, we just spoke about it before we came on here, but the fact that we currently have approximately, and we have to sort of differentiate between like just normal debt, gross net, to two different things. So this is according to what we know, that there's 1.4 billion pounds of net debt that has accrued since 2022 at Chelsea Football Club, which I think is quite a lot. When you look at, I mean, you've seen the figures yourself that were published by I'm going to forget the guy's name now because I'm now recording. I can't remember his name. Kieran Mag-
Kieran
Kieran
Maguire.
Maguire.
Yeah.
Kieran Maguire. So you've seen the figures, and we're talking purely just on the borrowings, the spending. That all has to be equated into these figures. But the one that was alarming was the net debt. The net debt, when you look in comparison to all the other clubs who are, in the region of 205 million or 59 million, 73 million, there's one club that stands out from all of the other clubs, and it is Chelsea Football Club, who's currently got a net debt of 1.474. That is billion, 1.4 billion of debt, net debt. Now, does that concern you? Is that something that, I mean, I know you just said you're sort of trying to distance or silence out the things that are happening outside of the football, but does that concern you when you look at all the other clubs? We're only 3 years into what we can call a project. And in business, you're always going to accrue some form of debt, whether it's astronomical or minimal. But does that surprise you, the levels and the comparisons to the other football clubs?
Yeah, well, firstly, it's extremely concerning. And secondly, it's extremely surprising that we've only had this new ownership for 3 years now. Abramovich cleared off all the debts that was previously occurred by the club before selling it on to the Blue Co consortium. And it also really surprises me that the second club with the highest debt on that list is Tottenham Hotspur, who have £938 million worth of net debt. And we have to remember that they got a loan for a fancy new stadium as well to be built.
Yeah.
So that would definitely be kind of encompassed in that sum. But I do find these numbers extremely worrying. Over 1.2 billion worth of borrowings and just under 1.5 billion worth of net debt, because this will have a long-lasting impact on the performances on the pitch for multiple
Yeah.
reasons. Because this is why we're essentially seeing this new strategy now of buying these youngsters from Brazil, from Ecuador, from wherever else, and then trying to see if they're going to be the next Vinicius, the next Rodrigo, the next Endrick, the next Neymar. And if they're
Yeah.
not, just selling them on at a profit. That's going to be this new strategy now. And if we continue to kind of occur this huge amount of net debt, then I wouldn't be surprised if we're going to have to sell our kind of prime assets in Cole Palmer, Caicedo, potentially Cucurella.
Yeah.
So that won't come as a massive surprise if it gets to that stage. And it's also poor recruitment.
Mhm.
You look at the likes of Mudryk, Joao Felix, these type of players that just clearly didn't work out. That's going
Yeah.
to also play a part. And then also it's going to have an impact on the fact we probably won't be able to get the development plans for a new stadium, or
Yeah.
kind of start looking into building a new stadium around the Earls Court or Fulham Broadway, because that's going to be a huge project as
Yeah.
well. But then it's so other small things. It's like if you've got such a high amount of borrowings, and this is, we have to remember, this is money that's not the owner's money. It's money clearly they're borrowing
Yeah.
from banks,
It's
and
equity
then
from
it's got
JP Morgan and
exactly
Bank of America's the other one.
Bank of America, JP Morgan, with significantly high interest rates as
Mm.
well.
Yeah.
So that number is just going to continuously increase as well. And then it's just small other things. It's like, if we've got such high borrowings and such high net debt, why haven't we got a front of shirt sponsor sorted out? It's like, it's just small things like that just don't really add up. And I think that's probably even more so why we were banking so much on making top 4 or top 5 this season, to get
Yeah.
that revenue from the Champions League. I think it seems like there's a lot of pressure to do fairly well in the Club World Cup, because there's quite a big cash prize for the winners of the Club World Cup. And it does seem that a lot of these players going out on loan, their loans end, I think, 1st of June, which meaning they will return to the Club World Cup. So I think the idea is to have kind of a fully packed squad to be able to compete and go quite far into that tournament. But just from a business perspective, it's so alarming and concerning. 3 years, and you look at that sum of money for borrowings and net debt. And just to give you an idea, Manchester United, who we think are in financial turmoil at the moment, they've almost got just almost half the amount of net debt as us.
Mm.
It's
And that's the alarming bit, isn't it?
yeah,
We know about United's financial issues and everything else, but we blow everyone out the park. Literally, we just I just and those loans were taken out very early. Those two loans, the two loans that they mentioned within the report. I mean, it's not on the tweet, but it's definitely in the report. I think one was for in the region of I've got the figures here somewhere. Yeah, so one was in the region of 300 million, and one was in the region of 500 million, and that's two separate loans that they've taken out against the club um, in a short space of time, and that was only to increase their budget, their revenue, or their spends, their transfer spends. That was allowing them to have this sort of sporadic transfers that you just spoke about, which some have not gone to plan. So I don't think that's a sustainable business model at all. I don't see how, like you said, no front shirt sponsor. Although the new kit is amazing, I'll be honest. It does look amazing. We'll try and touch on that, but I just can't. You can't sustain that as a football club. Um, if we don't get Champions League, what happens? That's the question I'd ask you. You know,
Mm.
if we don't get Champions League, what happens to the football club? It's it's not looking good.
No, there's a lot of kind of like a lot of ifs and buts, and it does
Yeah,
seem they talk about this project. The manager mentions that it's team's not going to be able to compete in the next 5 to 10 years, but then there's a lot of pressure financially for the team to compete because there's a lot of, like we saw, financial kind of trinkets
yeah,
or repercussions that will be involved. And like I said, I think if push comes to shove, we're going to have to sell some top quality players. Cole
agreed.
Palmer, who we bought for 40, 45 million, I think he's definitely a £100 million player now.
Mm,
And the owners won't kind of hesitate if it gets to that stage. And in their eyes, they'll think they'll be able to get another Cole Palmer from the Brazilian division. And I wouldn't even be surprised if they look to even buy a Brazilian club, similar to like what we this kind of multi club project they have.
yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if they look to buy a Corinthians, a Gremio, a Botafogo, to
yeah,
be able to like see it as their kind of second club where they can foster and develop Brazilian talents, because that seems like the project, or the, I always use this word project, I hate using it, but more the vision that these owners
yeah.
have, long term vision for finding talent and bringing it to the Premier League.
Mm. It's worrying times. It is worrying times as Chelsea. Where do we go if we don't get Champions League? To me, that is the ultimate question. But let's not. Let's get back to the actual football. Let's get back
Mm.
to what we do good. And what we like to do on this podcast is talk about actual football. We're not business people. We don't know what's going on. But let's hope things do change at the very top in the next couple of months or years or so. But let's talk about Wesley Fofana. You put out a tweet, I think, earlier on today, this morning. It says here, in the Premier League, Chelsea have conceded an average of a goal a game with Wesley Fofana in their team and 1.6 without him. The Athletic also did a good piece. So if you haven't done so already, go and check that out. Liam to me. Yeah, but a really good article that's aligned to that tweet. But it just goes to show how important Wesley Fofana has been. And I know you've referenced this before on the podcast about when our dip happened just before Christmas. It was coincided in the time that Wesley Fofana picked up his injury. But how important do you think Wesley Fofana is going to be, or hopefully if not this season, at least for the foreseeable next season?
I mean, we have to remember he's still very young.
Yeah,
I do kind of class him in that. I think he's only 22, maybe even younger, 21, and he's missed 2 seasons on individual occasions, 4 seasons of football last season, and I think it was a 1 season with Leicester. So there's still a lot I kind of expect from him, and a lot I still want to be proven right, proven wrong, essentially, that he is kind of our long-term solution. But from Chelsea perspective, like what we saw, our kind of our dip in form did come when he got injured. I think it was in the Villa game early December
yeah,
when
yeah,
he came off injured. And I also do think afterwards there was a dip in form with Colwell as well. So it's not just purely due to Fofana's injury. And also Colwell's had a number of different centre back partners since then. He's had Chalobah, he's had Tosin, he's had Badiashile, he's had Disasi even a few times. So it does seem like when we were performing best, there was that Colwell and Fofana partnership. I do remember one
yeah,
or two games where Fofana did look slightly out of position, or probably not to his best. I think maybe one of the goals we conceded against Brighton, perhaps. So he's still not the full kind of the finished kind of article. But yeah, that stat is pretty accurate in the Premier League. Like you said, Chelsea have conceded an average of 1 goal a game with Wesley Fofana in the team, and 1.6 without him. So clearly we're conceding more goals without him, and we look more defensively fragile without him as well. Um, but yeah, I think hopefully he was on the bench against Southampton. I'm glad he didn't come on, but I think it's just step one is being part of kind of a match day squad. He's
yeah,
had over a week now to kind of recover, and I think potentially in his Copenhagen game or the Leicester game on Sunday, it could be maybe a good occasion to reintroduce him, give him some minutes, maybe not a direct start, but maybe some minutes off the bench on Thursday with the potential possibility to start him on Sunday.
yeah. I think we've just got to. I mean, we've got to manage his minutes.
Yeah.
I think this season, I think he's such a. I'm not saying he's the. I agree with you. I think he's 24. I think he's a bit older than Colwell. Um,
Mm.
but I feel like they need a partnership. I feel like that is our bet. If we're talking about a centre back partnership. I'm not heavily confident when Tosin and Colwell are together. I'm not heavily confident when it's Chalobah and Colwell, but I do feel that Colwell, as much as I've said he's got many mistakes in him, and I think Trevor, I do think Trevor Chalobah will be moved on in the summer. I think we need to see that partnership of Wesley Fofana and Colwell, and hopefully that helps and happens. And it might help the goalkeeper as well. It might help the two fullbacks. If there's a consistent back four, I think that will help so much. And I agree with you. I don't think I would want to see Fofana. Maybe he gets a couple of minutes on Sunday against Leicester, but I wouldn't want to rush him back, because I think I'd love to see him get some minutes, the latter end of this season, but hopefully next season, gets through a successful preseason, the Copa America in between that, not the Copa America, the Club World Cup in between that. He'll then be able to kickstart his season in the right way for us. But it just goes to show how important, as much as we maybe as Chelsea fans we didn't see the importance of Wesley Fofana in that back line, how important he actually is. We've lost a lot more games without him.
We spent a lot of money on him as well. A
There is
lot of
that.
money.
There is that
Yeah.
as well.
We always talk about, I think it's Reece James and Lavia's fitness issues, but I would also put Wesley Fofana in that
Yeah, yeah.
category.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
if this persists for like another season, I think similar question marks to kind of the Reece James situation.
Yep.
Is it time to sell? Is it time to kind of look into another solution? So yeah, I think question marks this summer if these fitness issues persist.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, we go. I think he gets a bit more time. I don't know why. Than Reece James, because Reece James has obviously been at the club a lot longer, but he's in the same bracket. He's in the same group. Next season is a test season career defining moment for him. I think
Yeah.
if he doesn't keep himself fit, or if he can't keep himself fit, then we have to look at other options, because we can't go through another season of switching our back line, not having a consistent centre back partnership. That's one area of the pitch that you just have to build up a really good relationship with each other and understand where each other is on the pitch, and that partnership has to be there. And if it isn't, it's not going to work. Swapping and changing.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I also have to remember summer 2026 is a World Cup summer. I think Fofana would really want to be
Yep,
part
I
of
want to be there.
Didier Deschamps' squad, but I hate to kind of use them as an example, but what has made Arsenal fairly strong in the last few seasons, or very consistent in their performances, is it's always been the same back two
Yeah,
of Gabriel and Saliba, hasn't
yeah,
it? And
yeah,
we haven't had that. We really haven't
yeah,
had that. It's
yeah,
always been like a mix and match of two different people each time. I would say the most consistent one has been Colwell, but like I said, Colwell's had a range of different centre back partners throughout the last two seasons.
yeah,
Even Thiago Silva, looking back at last season, and then this season, he's had 3 or 4 different ones, maybe even 5 at times. So yeah, hopefully Fofana stays fit and he can be the long term partner for Colwell.
yeah. I agree. I think it's like I say, it's make or break for him. It is really make or break. Before we get on to the match tomorrow, we saw some pictures of, you just mentioned Thiago Silva. Saw some pictures of Thomas Tuchel reunited with some of the Chelsea squad: Jorginho, Mason Mount, Ben Chilwell. I feel like I'm missing someone, but there
And
was
Reece James,
Reece
Chalobah
James was
was
there,
there.
Chalobah.
Yeah,
The band was back together for one night, as they say. The Champions League final winning team was all together. I think you said it might have been a party hosted by Jorginho, I think, or it was a party that was held at someone's establishment somewhere, but it had all the Chelsea players from the Champions League winning squad. It's good to see. It was good to see. Kind of seeing those pictures. It took me back to how good we were at one point, if I'm honest. I don't know what your thought. What were your thoughts when you saw those photos surface?
it was nice. It kind of made me smile. It kind of made me realize this is what we had, and it was this kind of unity and this cohesion, and the fact the manager was there, Thomas Tuchel as well, who's now back
The
living in
England
London,
manager.
managing the England national team, who we're going to see a
Yeah,
first look of this month as
yeah.
well. I'm not gonna lie, probably the first time I've been relatively excited for an international break. Um, but yeah, the photos were nice. It was a bit came out of the blue. I wasn't really
Mm,
expecting that kind of group of players, especially I think Tuchel, Jorginho, and Mount. Those three together. I
yeah,
mean, all the Chelsea
yeah,
boys. It makes sense for them to be in London. But but no, it was good to see. And I think, like you said, I think it was more of a, because a lot of people on Twitter were saying it was a Champions League reunion, like purposely
Mm,
all those players were brought together to kind of
yeah,
celebrate their Champions League 2021 title. I think it was Jorginho's wife who posted the photos on Instagram. So
yeah,
maybe more some kind of like London party, and Tuchel got invited. Maybe Mount was in London for the weekend and came as well.
yeah.
But either way, you have to remember these players are kind of young. They do want to have fun. They probably still got their WhatsApp groups from the seasons and the
Oh
teams they
yeah,
were in
100%.
previously. Um, so yeah, good to see. But hopefully by the time we play Arsenal and United, it's back to being the enemy. So
Yeah, it was only for one night only. But no, it was
yeah.
good to see. I thought it was really good. It was like I said, it reminded me of one thing. It reminded me that Thomas Tuchel came in. If you remember, I think we played Wolves. I think we drew against Wolves in his first game. It wasn't the best game, but it was after what we had before that. It was good to
Mm,
see something different from Thomas Tuchel. I don't, if you remember that those social images, the social media videos came out of him showing the drills that he was doing on the
yeah,
training pitch. It was like an evening training
yeah.
session, if you remember.
The mini footballs I think he was playing with,
That was
wasn't
it.
he? Yeah,
That was it.
yeah,
Yeah. And if you think we're that from that moment to winning the Champions League, going on to win the Club World Cup, something that we had eluded us for so many years, then getting us into the top four. What he done in that short space of time, I don't think we speak about it enough as Chelsea fans. And it's just, I just don't, I don't know if the right call was to get rid of him, because if you look at it now, where we are, and you look what he did in that short space of time under, sanctions, his own personal things that he was going through at the time as well. There were so many things that were being factored in. I think COVID at that time, was it not as well? So
yeah.
there was so much things he had to deal with. Um, I just don't think we'll see another manager that can cope with all of those things with an ownership that we have. I don't think we'll see that. I really don't.
No, and there's a lot of people say like, oh, as soon as a new manager comes in, it's a given there'll be a bit of a new manager bounce. It's not a given anymore. I feel
No.
you look at Rudy Van Nistelrooy at Leicester,
Yeah.
he's struggling. You
Yeah.
look at Ruben Amorim. I was watching a
Yeah.
video at lunch. His winning record is actually worse than Ten Hag's this season. So it almost shows that maybe United were performing better under Ten Hag than under Amorim.
Yeah.
So what Tuchel did now is 4 or 5 months after he came in. I think it was deadline day of January. I think is
Yeah.
when he
Yeah.
came in.
Yeah.
And that game against Wolves, then he had the 2-0 win against Burnley straight after. And that 4 or 5 months was special. I think as well, you look at that crop of players he had, it was
Yeah.
a mix of youngsters, kind of experienced players. And I think that's what we lack now. And we also lack a manager who's just a bit of no bullshit as well. Who's
Yeah, it
going to
was
be,
tough.
who's experienced, who's managed at the top with Dortmund, with PSG, and all these other clubs. And I do worry that we're never going to go back to that stage. And now the focus is going to be getting the next big thing rather than
Mm,
the manager who actually has a proven track record in a way.
yeah. But that's what the model looks like. It's directing us into these managers that don't essentially have the, I don't want to say credentials, but maybe the quality, the experience to get us to that next level. You look at Potter. Okay, Pochettino maybe got to the Champions League final, but um, Maresca, TBC at the moment, isn't it? So it's hard to judge Maresca, I think, at the moment for me. But looking at those photos and going back and watching reliving some of those Champions League nights under Thomas Tuchel, unmatched. I don't think we'll see it again for a very long time. So
Yeah,
go back on YouTube
even
and
the
rewatch them.
yeah that video I think of like all the players kissing his shoe,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
were because I mean that shoe
Even
was like
going
the
back
lucky
in the
charm
dressing
that
room as
night.
well. There's like the moment where he goes into the dressing room and everyone's it was just, and you could see what he meant to Roman as well. I think if you look back,
Mm,
the relationship that he had with Roman Abramovich and all the other Chelsea managers under Roman probably had something similar. But I'm focusing on this one because it was the last one that he had as the owner of Chelsea. But you could just see what it meant to him to win the Champions League as an owner, as the owner of Chelsea Football Club, and having Thomas Tuchel side by side by him. The same with the Club World Cup as well. I don't think we'll see that for a long time. I really don't.
no, no, Champions League, Club World Cup, and Super Cup all in the
Super
space
Cup.
of just under a year as well. Yeah.
Come on, Maresca, give it to. I need that. I
we
need that
need we
sort of
need
energy.
yeah we need those glory days back in our lives.
big
Yeah.
big shoes to fill, Mr. Maresca. Let's head over to tomorrow. 5:45 kickoff in Denmark, Copenhagen. Conference League returns. We have some fresh faces in the Champions League. Champions League. I wish the Conference League
Yeah.
squad. Cole Palmer's now an addition to the squad, obviously, as we already know anyway. But we have lost. Before we get on to our predicted lineups, we have lost some players. Obviously, Axel Dazazi, Carney Chukwuemeka, Renato Vega, who were all previously as part of that squad, are no longer part of the Chelsea squad. So, and we spoke about the the lacking depth now that we have in the squad. Are you concerned by what we might see tomorrow from Chelsea against Copenhagen?
I'm quite concerned. I think we could maybe potentially see like Cucurella, Caicedo, and Enzo play 2 games in the space of 3 or 4 days,
Yeah,
um, encompassing as well the fact they need to travel back from Denmark. Might be cold conditions out in Denmark and then fairly warmer, more mild conditions in the weekend. And we've seen a lot of injuries that happen when these players are kind of static in these cold conditions
yeah,
and not fully warm as well. Um, so yeah, I think I did flag it on the previous recording that I am worried that maybe we might see a bit of dip in form in the Conference League as well, purely due to the lack of options we have. And all those players you kind of listed off there are players that potentially should have started against Copenhagen or could have got us fairly far up until the final. And now we're forced to play arguably our Premier League 11 again,
yeah,
given the fact we also have some injuries in Lavia, in Chalobah, in Fofana, in Jackson, in Gui. So yeah, I think that's quite concerning. I also think a lot of people were a lot happier when we got Copenhagen over Betis because it is probably an easier opponent. And I
yeah,
still kind of feel that way too. But we shouldn't really take them for granted. I think they're performing really well in the Danish division, top of the league in Denmark with I think just the 2 defeats.
mm,
Um, the stadium they play in, the Parker Stadium, does create an intimidating atmosphere. I know
yeah,
that the Danish fans do kind of know how to put on a good atmosphere. And there's some good players in that squad. Thomas Delaney, who used to play at Borussia Dortmund. There's also Rooney Bardghji, I think I'm pronouncing that right, who really impressed me when he played United and Bayern Munich in the Champions League last season, and he was even linked with a move to United.
mm,
Then there's some experienced players like Andreas Cornelius, Mohamed El Yunusi, who used to be at Southampton.
yeah.
And these type of games, we often do take them. We do always think, oh, it's a given. But like we saw in Astana, sometimes the conditions and the traveling can kind of have its
It's
toll
testing.
on your. It's a testing. It's really testing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, it's going to be tough. And I think last time we played Copenhagen, I did post about this morning, was Champions League round of 16,
yeah, it
2011.
was.
Nicholas Anelka brace in Denmark, and then it was a 0-0 draw at Stamford Bridge. Um, yeah, so a lot has changed since then. I'm sure
Mm.
both on Copenhagen's side and Chelsea's. I'm expecting a tough game as well. It's going to be straight early finish for work and straight into
Yeah,
watching the football.
yeah, yeah. These early sort of 5:45 kickoffs never a good thing. But I do agree with you. You know, Copenhagen are doing very well. I think they're on 40 points in their domestic league. I think one behind second. I can't remember who's second, but I think it might be Michelin who's second in the league at
Midland,
the
yeah.
moment. Um, but yeah, we can't take the game for granted at all. And I was listening to Straight Outta Cobham podcast earlier on today, and they had quite a lot of youth in that lineup. The Raksakis, Pongs, Tariq George. I understand it a little bit, but I think now at this stage in the competition, I think we need to, for me personally, I think we need to be able to come back to that second leg at Stamford Bridge with a bit more of a comfortable win. I think you should use your youth, your younger players, so to speak, or they're all young players, but the ones that the Tyreek Georges, I think they should come on. Amagu might come on tomorrow night and be able to do something. I wouldn't start them, in my opinion, but I'd go with a strong 11 and, phase them out. You'd think maybe you could do the same against Leicester as well on Sunday. You could swap and change those throughout that game. So, but I do think getting a really good victory tomorrow night is crucial, because you don't want to be coming back with a defeat from Denmark and going into that game at Stamford Bridge where the expectation is to win that game. You want to kind of have that victory tomorrow, bring it back to Stamford Bridge, and maybe you rest some of your players for the Arsenal game and the Tottenham game coming up in the next couple of weeks. But let's question for you actually.
Mm.
Goalkeeper. Now we know that Jurgensen is currently the Premier League goalkeeper. Um, does Robert Sanchez come back into your team at this precise moment for tomorrow?
I think so, yes. We saw Sanchez playing the FA Cup against Brighton, which for me is an indication that he's now become the cup keeper, and Jorgensen's now the league keeper. This is arguably a cup game. It's sure it's in a European competition, but still a cup game. Jorgensen started all the league phase games, so I think now it's time Sanchez, given the switch, he becomes the Conference League goalkeeper.
Fortunately, if you're listening on the audio version for the YouTube viewers, they don't have a goalkeeper kit on here where we do these predicted lineups. So Jurgens has got the away kit as it stands at the moment. But what would your back four be in terms of defenders that you'd like to see tomorrow?
I mean, it's got to be Cucurella. He's our only kind of natural
Yeah,
left back, isn't he?
you say that, but I mean, this is time for Gusto or maybe Reece James to swap over to that left side, as you've said previously on here before.
Potentially for the second leg. I would not risk anything maybe for the first leg. And we're very fortunate at Cucurella. We take it for granted, but his match fitness is pretty good. He
Yeah,
plays a lot of football. He manages to stay clear of injuries. So yeah, I would start him in the Danish capital tomorrow. Centre backs, we don't
tricky.
have that many options. Yeah, I mean, Fofana's just recovered. Chalobah went off injured against, was it Aston Villa or Southampton? I think it was Villa.
Villa.
Or Brighton, one of those games. So I would go with Colwell and Tosin. Colwell left centre back and Tosin right centre back.
Yeah, I think I'll go with the same.
Now right back, we did rest Reece James against Southampton, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah, but I'm also thinking
He's had 2
3 days
weeks.
later. Yeah, but 3 days later we've got another big game against Leicester. I say big, but must-win game against Leicester. So I would say we start Gusto in this one against Copenhagen.
It's interesting.
Do let me know if you agree as well.
I would no, I would start Reece James tomorrow. I think
Mm,
I'm more concerned that he's either not fit enough to even be on the bench, but he's on the bench, which doesn't make any sense to me, or we need to just test him now and see how he gets on. I'm not saying he should play 90 minutes tomorrow, but for me, he should definitely start the game, and then you bring on Gusto or Achiampong to replace him maybe after 60, 50 or 60 minutes or so tomorrow.
At Champong, yeah, that's a shout as well.
Yeah.
Has Fofana been re-added to the Conference League squad? Or
Oh, you're testing me now. I think he potentially will have, but let's see if we can find it. I don't think he did he?
Conference. Anyway, I wouldn't start him tomorrow, but to see what he features
He
on the
should be on.
bench.
He should be on the bench at least.
Yeah, I kind of thinking given Disasi's loan out in January, he probably got re-added.
No, he's not added.
He's not. I think it was Palmer and
So we've got
Lavia.
the list I've got here is Bergstrom, Jorgensen, Sanchez, Tossen, Badiashile, Chalobah, Cucurella, Gusto, James, Caicedo, Dewsbury Hall, Fernandez, Gu, Jackson, Madueke, Mudryk, and Kunku, Palmer, Neto, Sanchez, Achiampong, Ampar. This is the B list now. So we've got Achiampong, Ampar, Cowell, Dyer, George, McMahon, Murray Campbell, Elise, Raksaki, and Wilson, or Caden Wilson, I should say. So I think that would be my. I don't think I would change at the moment is the right back. I'd go with Reece James. But yeah, apart from that, essentially I'll go with that as my back line. What about your two midfield?
Yeah, I think one of Enzo or Caicedo has to be rested for this one. We can't afford to start both of them against Copenhagen and against Leicester. So I would rest Enzo and have Caicedo and Dewsbury Hall play together tomorrow.
So Caicedo and Dewsbury Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd go with. What's going on there? I'd go with that as well. I think it's a toss. It's hard because I think I feel like if Caicedo was to get the injury, it would be more of an impact than it would if it was Enzo, if that makes sense a little bit.
I agree.
So,
Yeah.
wrong person. Oh, what's going on here? What am I doing? Right, let's change him. Just for time. Right, so we're going for Caicedo, Keane and Dewsbury Hall as the two in the midfield. The three in the attack.
I mean, the wingers, I'll go with Sancho and with Tyreek George.
And then having Sancho, I take it on the left because I think Sancho was on the right for Southampton, wasn't he? I think
Yeah, and George looked sharp when he came on against Southampton, created the assist for Cucurella as well. Uh,
he did.
but
Yeah.
then it's like we just have you don't. I'm trying to think who he plays as a 10 and who he plays as a striker, because is it a chance for is it Shim Muheka to play this game? Was it too soon?
Would you
Do you play
trust him?
maybe? Yeah, would you trust him? But obviously Madueke is also injured, so I think it's got to be Nkunku and Palmer again as
So you'd have
the
Palmer as the false nine and Kunku as the 10,
yeah, or vice versa. And I think
or
I would
they can
rest
swap.
Neto. Yeah, I'd rest Neto for this one and have him play against Leicester as the false nine because he looked good there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm going to put on Kunku as the false nine for now, but I think what
Yeah,
will happen is we know that it will swap over and sort of be a bit more intricate there as well. But I think that's what we've got to go with. My only changes, I
yeah.
said, would be Gusto out, Reece James in. I would start George and I would start Sancho. I would rest Neto because I think he's, like you
Yeah.
said, going to be a bit more important for Sunday's game as well. So that's
Do I
interesting.
like do I like this lineup? Not really, because it does expose a lot of players to
Yeah.
back-to-back football and potential injuries. But I think given the kind of injuries we have and the lack of depth, it's kind of what we have to
We've
go
got to.
for.
We've got to
Yeah,
go
and
with
then
that. I think we can't afford to go in that second leg with a deficit.
absolutely not. And hopefully go into our second leg with a healthy lead where we can maybe afford to make a few rotations.
Yeah. And if the game tomorrow is going our way, if it's 3-0, 4-0,
Mm.
which it could easily be, if it does go that way, then of course bring off Caicedo, take off the likes of Cole Palmer. You don't want to be playing him for 90 minutes tomorrow night in a Conference League game when you probably need him. But I will say about Cole Palmer, this could be a good time for him to rediscover some of that confidence that he seems to have
Yeah.
lost a little bit over the last couple of weeks. So this could be a perfect time for him to go and get a goal, and that could kickstart his season again a little bit. So start him, but bring him off as well. Ideally for me, I would still, I'm going to die on this hill. I'm going to say it on every podcast, but I would change things tactically and go with the two wing backs and have three
Mm.
centre backs. But, we're then relying on someone like Chalobah, I think, to then come into the defensive line. You then might have to start using Pedro Neto as that sort of false nine in between the middle. So Maresca would never do that, but I personally would start looking at doing something different tactically with our squad as it is at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also in that first half of that Villa game. We look almost back to our best at times,
Yeah.
especially with that early goal, and that was with the wing backs. So I think should we get some personnel back and some players back from the injuries, it's definitely a formation and a tactical tweak to maybe revisit.
Yeah, I agree. Let's do our predictions as we always do. Let you go first. Actually, I'll let you go first.
Oh, I don't know if this is about. Oh, I think this game could like really go any mix of ways, and I still haven't seen enough from Chelsea since Christmas to make me think we're back. Because I think that Southampton game they were just really poor, really poor.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna go. I still think we have enough to win, especially if Palmer plays and we have Caicedo in midfield. So I'm gonna go with 3-1 Chelsea.
I'm actually going to go for a draw in this game. I'm going to go 1-1.
Ooh,
Yeah, I think it'd
I
be
think
quite a. I think it would be quite a disappointing game from our perspective. I think, yeah, I again, defensively we're not the best. I think there'll be a scrappy goal that we might score, but we're definitely going to concede tomorrow. Um,
mm,
yeah, I just can't see us winning the game. I think the gap as well from Southampton to playing tomorrow might affect some of the players not having that sort of FA Cup weekend to just sort of keep themselves a bit fresh. I think that might play a part as well. The travelling is never easy for certain players. So
traveling. Yeah.
yeah, I just don't see us getting a win tomorrow. I really don't.
It's a tough ground to go to. Really tough ground to go to as well.
Hostile,
I,
intimidating.
should, I might change my predictions to 2-1 actually. I feel like 3 goals is a bit of a push.
bit generous.
I think, yeah, very generous. I do also quickly want to talk about should we get past Copenhagen? It's still a big should after our
Yeah,
predictions. I wanted to talk about the potential road to the final and the potential opponents we would play,
yeah,
because I do also think we got quite lucky of the draw that we're on the easier side of the
yeah,
table with
100%.
the draw. because obviously Fiorentina, Panathinaikos, Cercle Brugge, Real Betis, Vitoria, all on the other end, which means we can
Mm,
only play any of those teams in the final.
yeah,
So should we beat Copenhagen, we would play the winner of Molde or Legia Warsaw in the
yeah,
quarterfinals. And then should we get past Copenhagen, then Molde or Legia Warsaw, we would play in the semi-finals either Paphos, Djurgården, who I think are Swedish, Borac, who I think are Bosnian, or SK Rapid, who I think are Austrian. I
yeah.
really think I got that right. I need to double
You
check all
did.
that.
I think you did. Your
Yeah.
geography's on point.
And like again, I almost giving these teams a lot of respect, but we should be beating these teams,
Oh yeah,
every
yeah.
single one
No,
of them.
we should
Yeah,
be. We should be.
yeah. But
It's
so
not
I
a
do
bad
think
road. Not a bad road to
no.
the final.
I mean, again, maybe I'm a bit selfish and think of the potential away days, and none of those are as tempting as a Portugal, Spain, or
Bit more
Greece again.
warmer weather.
Yeah, but yeah, I think it's definitely doable. I know a lot of Chelsea fans are already booking their flights to Poland in May.
Yeah.
Um, but let's not
Listen,
get too cocky and focus on this game first. I feel.
I agree with you, but I've said on here before, there can be no excuses come the end of this tournament. There can be no excuses. We've got one of the best squads in it. We spent too much money. Our B team, so to call it, should be able to deal with this. And if they can't, then a lot of questions have to be asked about the sporting directors for me and how we're in a position where we can't win. West Ham won this trophy, and that's not a disrespect to West Ham at all, but they won this trophy quite comfortably, if I remember correctly. I think maybe a couple of extra time moments, but they won it essentially. No one remembers that when you've got the trophy at the end of it. So there can be no excuses. There can be none.
No excuses. A lot of Chelsea fans crying out for us to qualify for the Champions League, but if we
Yeah,
can't get through to
exactly,
the Conference League final, then forget the
exactly,
Champions League because there's
exactly,
this massive gap in quality between those competitions, and it might even be a step in the right direction if we get to Europa League first and compete
exactly.
against the likes of Bilbao, Porto, Lazio, these teams, and
Yeah,
then maybe
baby
get to the
steps,
baby steps. Exactly. I mean, I
baby
hate to say
steps.
it because I do want to see it in the Champions League, but if you
No,
can't
no, no.
beat
You're right.
Copenhagen, um, Paphos, and Legia Warsaw, then forget the Champions League.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Before we wrap up, the new kit was somehow leaked, as they always are. You posted them on our socials, from the Shed End. If you're not aware of our social handles, from the Shed End on Instagram and Twitter. Um, I, yeah, I mean, I like them. I'm going to be honest. I'm just looking at them now. The home kit, I love. I'm not too keen on the collar. I'll be honest. What's your thoughts on the kits anyway? I think you've shared like the. I'm trying to find the tweet here, but you've definitely shown or shared the kits. What's your thoughts on them?
Yeah, there's definitely a bit of a throwback feel to it, especially with the home one. I think it's kind of a throwback to
Yeah,
that Commodore sponsored
Commodore one.
kit from the 89-90 season. Away kit as well with the kind of white, red, and green pattern. I think it's a throwback to one of the previous kits we
Oh,
had.
it might be
But
the
I think that,
70s,
yeah, I
the
was going to
80s. Yeah,
say, but I think the big one is the third one with the
yeah, the
more
Crespo
retro
one,
badge. Yeah, yeah, the black badge almost like gives me that
and then Crespo.
T90 vibes. Yeah, the Hernan Crespo 2004 kit. I like that one. I like it
Yeah,
a
yeah,
lot. But I
yeah,
also think these kits could be make or break depending on who our
yeah.
front of shirt sponsor is as
Trying to
well.
see if they can catch that on there. I don't know if they'll
Yeah,
autofocus on there as such, but yeah, it's not. There we go. Kind of do autofocus, but yeah, they are amazing.
yeah.
They are amazing
I think
kits. They are.
if we get a decent sponsor, like almost like that look just aesthetically nice, like a Samsung, I might have to break the bank and give these owners my money, even though I'm similar to you, I'm very against it at the moment. But
Yeah,
I may
I
have to
mean
make an
they are
exception for one
tempting.
of those.
They are
Yeah.
very, 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 very tempting. Hopefully things are changed by the time they come out and I can actually
Yeah.
purchase that one. But no, if you haven't seen the kits, previewed them, looked at them, as I said, head over to From the Shed End, head over to Instagram, Twitter. You'll be able to see them on there. Let us know your thoughts. Share your thoughts in the comments on the post on there. Let us know what you think. As I said at the very start of this, please subscribe. Subscribers are on 520 as of today. I think they're creeping up slowly. So again, we appreciate everyone that is subscribing. The Linktree link is in the description for the social accounts and the podcast episodes. As always, let's hope for, I was going to say for 3 points. It's not 3 points. Let's hope we get a good victory tomorrow at Copenhagen. We can bring back a good result to Stamford Bridge. We will be previewing the Leicester game as well later on this week, so make sure you tune in for that one. Until then, Theo, as always, thank you very much. Pleasure. We'll
Thank
be
you.
back.
Yeah, looking
Be
forward
back
to the
soon.
game tomorrow, and let's hope we win.
Yeah, let's hope we get the win, and we'll be back soon.